My name is Ibrahim Ba, and this special edition will bring you the press conference at the Ministry of Justice in Banjul. The press conference is coming a day after the Minister of Justice, Abubakar Tambedu, who also is the Attorney General of the country, has tendered his resignation from the government of the Gambia. So at the moment, the press conference is about to take place from the chambers in Banjul, as you can see on my right-hand side. The live images happening where the minister who is outgoing is already on the podium. We go with that. We go with that in Banjul.
2020, submitted my resignation as and Minister of Justice to His Excellency President Adam Barrow. My resignation will take effect from 30th June 2020. While it saddens me to leave office at this critical juncture of our transition, I am consoled by the fact that I leave behind a capable team of committed and dedicated personnel who have been working very closely with me on all our processes from the beginning. Their institutional knowledge and experiences will ensure that these ongoing activities remain on course and on the right track. It has been an honor and unique privilege for me to serve my country in such high office under His Excellency President Barrow. I owe him immense gratitude for the privileged opportunity given to me to contribute, even if modestly, to rebuilding our country after 22 years of unquantifiable damage. I am grateful to him for the trust and confidence he had shown in me by my appointment as the first Attorney General and Minister of Justice in a post-dictatorship new democratic Gambia. I thank him for his constant and continuous support to me and the Ministry of Justice throughout my tenure as AG over the past 3.5 years. I owe him an eternal debt of gratitude. What happened in this country on 1st December 2016 was a revolution by any standards, a political revolution to match any other in world history. We removed a dictator by democratic means, through the ballot box, and peacefully. We should all be proud of this historical achievement. At a personal level, it would have been enough for me to just witness this historic moment, let alone be asked to play an active part in the ensuing process of change. Since then, a lot has happened over the past 3.5 years. On my part, I have initiated and delivered on the key pillars of our transitional justice process, which has now achieved global recognition by experts as being among the best models in the world, particularly for its inclusiveness and originality. Some other key milestones include the successful gazetting of a new draft constitution without amendment, the establishment of a Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission process, which is currently underway, the establishment of the Gambia'S first National Human Rights Commission, and the establishment of the Janneh Commission to inquire into the financial corruption of former President Jammeh, and as a result of which the government has been able to recover over $1.1 billion so far. And in all of these processes, we were able to put together a team of talented and credible Gambians, and I wish to thank them for their service to country. I led efforts to rebuild a hitherto weakened judiciary, and I'm glad that we now have a respectable, robust, and independent organ of state. Immediately after my appointment, I established a criminal case and detention review panel which reviewed a total of 241 ongoing cases, criminal cases, involving 304 accused persons. I discontinued prosecutions in 36 cases involving 86 accused persons on the basis of insufficient evidence. Reported incidents of arbitrary arrests, detention without trial, or torture by state agents, which were a hallmark of the Jammeh days, have substantially reduced. Freedom of expression, which was a luxury in the past, is now taken for granted. In sum, the Gambia is no longer in a state of fear. On legislative reform, between 2017 and 2020, the ministry has introduced and or revised a total of 47 different pieces of legislation affecting different sectors of government. 26 of these have become law, and 23 are now before the National Assembly for consideration. Also, during my tenure, the government's commitment to international law has strengthened. We rescinded the decision by the Jammeh administration to withdraw the Gambia from the International Criminal Court, paving the way for our continued membership to the ICC. We signed and or ratified a number of international treaties, including the UN Convention Against Torture, the UN Optional Protocol on the Abolition of the Death Penalty, the UN Convention Against Enforced and Involuntary Disappearance, and the African Charter on Democracy, Elections, and Governance. We successfully submitted our combined periodic reports for the first time since 1985 to the UN Human Rights Council on the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and our combined periodic report for the first time since 1994 to the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. More significantly, we became one of only 7 countries at the moment in Africa to make a declaration pursuant to Article 34(6) of the Protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the establishment of an African court to allow individuals to have direct access to the court. But a lot still remains to be done. In this regard, I have introduced a number of bills to the National Assembly as part of the government's legislative reform agenda. These include comprehensive amendments to the Criminal Code and Criminal Procedure Code for a radical transformation of our criminal justice system to bring it in line with modern criminal justice norms and practices. In particular, the amendments will introduce non-custodial sentences such as community service, suspended sentences, probation, plea bargaining, and greater flexibility for bail. Other new bills include a prohibition of torture bill, which will criminalize acts of torture for the first time in the Gambia, an international crimes bill to cover mass atrocity crimes like genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity, an access to information bill, an anti-corruption bill, and various other amendments to remove discriminatory laws against women in our society. In anticipation of the next electoral cycle from next year, I have commissioned a review of our electoral laws and the Elections Act in particular, following consultations with the Independent Electoral Commission and all the registered political parties at a seminar that I had recently organized with support from the UNDP and IDEA. Based on ongoing consultations with the IEC, it is expected that a new voter registration exercise and a constitutional referendum will be conducted at least 6 months before next year's presidential elections. Indeed, some things could have been done differently. In fact, some things can always be done differently. and there is always room for improvement. But those who are constantly looking for mistakes by this government will always find faults because of the unique circumstances in which we find ourselves as a country in transition. We inherited a system of governance where state institutions from the presidency to the lowest levels were systematically dismantled over a 2-decade period, and where we found no culture or practice of state protocol in consonance with democratic practice. In many instances, we have had to rely on conventional wisdom. Given these circumstances, there are bound to be mistakes. But when mistakes occur, point them out in a constructive manner and make suggestions on how to avoid them in future. Do not just sit back and moan and blame. You can surely do much better than that. Unless we forget, those countries that currently do better than us in governance have had their own fair shares of trials and tribulations for centuries before getting to their current levels of development and democratic evolution. Ours will come too, but only with time and maturity. During my first engagement with the media, immediately after I was sworn in as Attorney General and Minister of Justice, I announced that my principal objective as Attorney General was to restore public confidence in the administration of justice system in the country. This, of course, was not going to be an easy task, given that we were just emerging from a governance environment that was characterized by direct political interference in the judiciary by the previous executive, the unlawful summary dismissal of judicial officers who dared to make decisions against the state or sometimes for unknown reasons, and the hiring of private mercenary judges who sent innocent Gambians to jail on the dictates of one man. Today, only 3.5 short years later, I am proud of our achievements in this endeavor. No one can now deny that public confidence in the administration of justice system in this country hasn't substantially increased. Indeed, as a lawyer, I am heartened to finally see the law in action, even if I don't agree with the outcome at times. More broadly, however, peace and stability and reconciliation must be the preoccupation of any post-conflict or post-dictatorship society. And our decisions at the Ministry of Justice over the past 3.5 years have largely been guided by these objectives. There is good reason why the Secretary General of the United Nations included our country in his sustaining peace agenda. There is good reason why the United Nations and other bilateral and multilateral partners such as the African Union, ECOWAS, and the European Union deployed their resources to this country soon after the change and continue to do so. Societies like ours that have been brutalized and traumatized for decades are fragile and must be handled with care. Ensuring peace, democracy, development, and stability in that order cannot be achieved overnight in a post-conflict or post-dictatorship society like ours. It will take a generation or more to turn this country into a stable and institutionalized democracy. And even then, no government can do it alone. It will require a deliberate effort, individually and collectively, on the part of each and every one of us. There are still many who do not fully understand or appreciate the challenges of reconstructing a post-conflict or post-dictatorship society like ours. It requires a delicate balance across a range of competing political, social, and economic interests. More importantly, doing the right thing at the wrong time, as we have learned from other countries, can unravel all the good work invested in these processes. In the end, painful decisions and sacrifices will have to be made for the greater good. This is a reality that we must all try to live with if we truly want to turn a fresh page in our country. The best thing that has happened to us as a country is the freedom that we all enjoy today. There is simply no price tag to this freedom. The new Gambia is therefore not about winners and losers. We either succeed together or we fail together, because as a nation we are bound together by a common destiny. But failure is not an option. And that is why we must persist and we must persevere, especially in the face of adversity. This is the burden of responsibility that we carry as pioneers of this change. Every country on earth has its own set of challenges unique to its historical and political context, and so does ours. Yes, we cannot change this country through the wave of a magic wand, but we can start somewhere. We can start with what we have and preserve it, and that is the peace in this country. It is a national treasure that we must guard jealously. For without peace, there cannot be democracy or development or justice. Our challenge going forward is to make this peace sustainable and turn it into stability for our people. And yes, the choice is ours, each and every one of us. We can either choose to live in peace or not. And we all have a role to play in this, but especially the media. The biggest threat to our peace and fledgling democracy is misinformation. I implore the media to be mindful of your critical role in a fragile democracy such as ours. Do not turn your supporters in government against you by your own actions. Do not, under the guise of freedom of expression, ruin the lives and reputations of others simply because you can. In small communities like ours in this country, the consequences of publishing false information can be devastating. The people you write about have families too. Their kids go to school with other kids. Their spouses interact with others at work and at other public places. By all means, expose corruption and corrupt practices in government. But I encourage you to do so with hard facts. And to be fair to some of you, you do to your credit. It will only enhance your credibility. Do not allow those with a partisan, political, or narrow personal agenda to use you to smear others, because when you do, you will also discourage honest and hard-working Gambians from accepting to serve in public office, and consequently deprive this country of the best human resource talent that we need to develop our country. Government, in my view, is a microcosm of society, and I believe that there are more honest people in society than we care to acknowledge. Notwithstanding, it is refreshing to see a vibrant media and an active press corps in the country nowadays. And I, in particular, wish to take this opportunity to say, well done. But in your hands lie the stability of this country. Be responsible about it. To the victims of human rights violations and abuses during 22 years of Jammeh's rule, you will get justice. I have always had you in mind at every stage of our transitional justice process. and I have been committed and dedicated to your cause since the first day I was appointed. I know that there have been difficult moments for you and your families in this process, and I can only assure you that it will not have been in vain. I am aware that my principled position on former President Jammeh has not endeared me to his supporters and sympathizers. And to them, I say, Jammeh belongs to the past. So wake up from your dreams of a Jammeh political comeback and move on with your lives. He has caused too much pain and suffering to the people of this country throughout his 22-year reign of terror, as the TRRC keeps revealing. He has, during this period, destroyed the innocence and soul of Gambian society with the sheer brutality of his crimes. And for this, he will be brought to account someday here or abroad. He will surely have his day in court. I wish to conclude by thanking many. To my cabinet colleagues for their esprit de corps and solidarity, particularly in times of adversity. I wish to thank each and every one of you for your support at all times. To the President and members of the Gambia Bar Association and my colleagues at the bar, for their cooperation and partnership with me and my ministry. Our interactions were truly cordial and collaborative. To my critics, and yes, there were quite a few, I thank you too for keeping me on my toes all the time, even if I felt that some of the criticisms were unreasonable or unjustified or unfair at times. But I will choose this life any day over life in bondage under a dictatorship. To the representatives of the international community and our regional and international development partners in the country, the African Union, ECOWAS, and the European Union, thank you for standing by the Gambian people at their hour of most need. I particularly wish to thank the entire United Nations system here in the Gambia, especially the UNDP and the Transitional Justice Project Management Unit. To the UN Peacebuilding Commission and the Peacebuilding Support Office under Assistant Secretary General Oscar Fernandez Taranco, who has been an exceptional supporter of the Gambia's transitional justice process and peace-building initiatives. To SISG Chambers for his dedication to peace in our country, as well as to IDEA, the Justice Rapid Response, the International Center for Transitional Justice, and the Commonwealth. Please continue to support our country's transition and transformation. The Gambia and her people need you, so do not abandon us. Help us complete this beautiful and inspiring story of a country that rose from the ashes of tyranny and became a modern democracy through peaceful means. The pride will be as much yours as it will be ours. To my family, my friends, and loved ones who constantly encourage me throughout the emotional roller coaster ride of the past 3.5 years, I simply cannot thank you enough. Being Attorney General at this time in our country is perhaps the most challenging job of this post-dictatorship administration. But you have been my rock to lean on. I couldn't have survived on this job for this long without your enduring support and encouragement. There were times when the pressures of being in public office caused too much pain for you, and I am sorry for making you go through these painful moments. I hope that you can forgive me. And to my staff at the Ministry of Justice, I have said previously that I have never worked with a more committed and dedicated team than the men and women of the Ministry of Justice. I could not be prouder calling them my staff. Over the past 3.5 years, they have been pushed to their limits to ensure that we deliver on our reform promises to the people of this country, and they have been equal to the challenge. I salute their efforts and determination despite the difficult conditions and the many constraints. There is so much unexplored talent at this ministry, and I can only encourage you to go forth and let fly. Don't allow anyone to make you believe otherwise. When I walked through these doors the first time 3.5 years ago, 3/4 of professional staff did not have a desktop computer on their tables. They were still drafting legal opinions with pens and paper, as I did here back in 1997 as a public prosecutor. There was no office internet to facilitate online research for the lawyers, and even stationaries and vehicles to attend court proceedings was a constant daily struggle. Basic as they seem, it served as an early indication of the acute human and material resource challenges I was to confront as Attorney General in the years ahead. Today, I am glad that I will be leaving a Ministry of Justice in much better shape than I found it as Attorney General. I have turned the ministry into a truly professional environment and into a modern state law office that now, among other things, undertakes criminal prosecution without political motivation. But one of my proudest moments as Attorney General was when I was able to improve your conditions of service. I will repeat what I had said in my most recent memo to you about this. The improvement in your conditions of service is recognition of your unique position, not only as professionals in the civil service, but also as the bearers of the torch of justice that should shine across the country. It is a heavy responsibility indeed, but I have no doubt in my mind about your abilities, your dedication, and your commitment to meet and perhaps even exceed the expectations of the people of this country. As the old adage goes, to whom much is given, much is expected. To the Solicitor General, Mr. Cherno Mawena, thank you for your loyalty. I surely would have been lost in the complex web of government, machinery, and bureaucracy without your steady guidance. To my special advisor, Mr. Hussein Tomasi, I will miss your wisdom, your calm composure, your maturity, and professionalism. Thank you, too, for pulling me back from the brink on many occasions. It has been a pleasure working with both of you. To my secretaries, the general staff at the ministry, including the clerks, the drivers, the cleaners, to my driver, and my designated successive personal assistants, Ms. Mam Job, Ms. Ami Fadera, and Ms. Fatou Ndiaye. Thank you all for your invaluable support to me. I know that I have demanded too much at times, particularly with my frequent calls and messages at late hours of the night. And I thank you and your families for showing understanding and patience. Lastly, while determination to make a difference as Attorney General was as dogged as the challenge was daunting, and while I might also have, on occasion, failed to meet everyone's expectations, I am comforted by the fact that I gave my best for my country against many odds, at a most critical period and at great personal sacrifice. The rest of the story I will leave to the students of history. Our country needs all of us, all its sons and daughters, all our different strengths, our collective willpower, and above all, our unquestionable patriotism, to join hands and work together to bring about meaningful change in the lives of our people. This is what our country expects and demands of us at this moment in history. Anything less from us will be a betrayal of that sacred trust bestowed on us since 1st December 2016. So I call upon everyone, especially the political class, civil society organizations, youth organizations, women's groups, and the media fraternity, to refocus and rededicate ourselves to the noble cause of the common good. People have died for this cause, and we must never lose sight of that reality in our dealings with each other. For when we stand together, shoulder to shoulder, it is the Gambia that wins. Finally, I don't even know if I should congratulate or commiserate with my successor, Mr. Dawda Jallow, because this is a very hot seat. But I will remain optimistic and extend my hearty congratulations to him. I wish him well and a successful tenure as AG. I wish to conclude with the touching and sober remarks of Sekou Jammeh of the Gambia Press Union back in January 2017 when he posted this comment, and I quote, "The sun is shining on Gambia, not because Jammeh has gone or that Barrow is coming, but because Gambia has decided that never again," unquote. I thank you and goodbye.
Attorney General, Minister of Justice outgoing, Abubakar Batambedu, speaking there on a marathon farewell speech from the Ministry of Justice in Banjul about 30 minutes ago. He has been delivering his farewell speech after he tendered resignation from the Ministry of Justice, and the President Barrow has already accepted his resignation, that he will be now moving on. So for the past 3.5 years, he has been the chief government advisor on legal matters. So Abubakar Batambedu used the opportunity to, enumerate some of his developments, some of the institutional and professional reforms he managed to bring about at the Ministry of Justice and in the legal sector. So looking at it, he also talked about key achievements such as the looming bills, such as the the bill against torture. He talks about the law reforms and other institutional, matters such as the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparation Commission that is ongoing, the Constitutional Review Commission. You're talking about the National Human Rights Commission, and a host of other, engagement that he has also spearheaded as a chief legal advisor to the government of the Gambia. So right now the press conference is going on, but since his main statement is done, has the press conference has just ended in Banjul. So that was his powerful and then marathon statement to show that it is a hot seat indeed to be the chief legal advisor to the government of the Gambia, especially at this critical juncture, which is transformation of post dictatorship scenario. So if you were with us, you understand that he also pay a special commendation to the current president, saying that it was good to have that opportunity to serve as on the hot seat, as he called it, to be the legal advisor to the government. And also the most important thing that he also talked about is the victim of the former regime, who have been experiencing a lot of challenges and then hoping for justice one day. After the dawn of a new regime in this country, he said justice will be served either soon or later, and he called for patience of all those who have been affected one way or the other. So this is Abubakar Batambedu, who has been very much visible in government matters, especially on human rights and constitutional matters across the length and breadth of the country when it comes to the past 3 years. So with me is Julden Jai, who have been following the press conference, and then, Batambedu talk about institutional reforms such as the TRC, the Jane Commission, the National Human Rights Commission. These are achievements that he think that, it was very difficult decision for one to make in this country, but finally it was achieved.
Yeah, just like you mentioned, it was very, very difficult under his leadership to achieve some of these commissions because of the controversy attached to some of these commissions, especially the TRC, which is the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparation Commission, and of course the Jani Commission, the Human Rights Commission. All these are geared towards making sure that the Never Again campaign will not repeat, and of course to give justice to the people who have been allegedly victimized under the leadership of the former president Yahya Jammeh. And he, of course, he did talk about the constitution, the gazetting of the constitution for the first time, under his leadership. They gazetted the constitution without amendments, which he believes it is a milestone under his leadership as the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. He did also talk about so many other legal transition that occurred under his leadership as the Minister of Justice. He did also say that though the challenge was daunting, it wasn't really easy for him, but he was through the support of his team, advisors, and of course colleagues, he was able to achieve so many things under the leadership of President Adama Barrow. And even the restoring Gambia to the International Criminal Court. During Yahya Jammeh's time, Gambia was not part of the ICC, but when they came in, they ensured that the Gambia was back to the International Criminal Court, and a periodic report to the UN Human Rights Commission also was done under his leadership, which he said was rarely done in the Gambia here. But thanks to his leadership, they were able to accomplish all these things, which he thinks they are major achievements
Exactly.
there.
That's why it was such a marathon report or farewell statement before the press. And Abubakar Batambedu, living at a very critical time, he talked about the issue of the Jammeh, the Jane Commission, which said that Jammeh or the country, in fact, must have illegally possessed a lot of wealth from the Gambia. And as a result, so by the end of, or acting on the recommendation of the Jane Commission, the government of the Gambia, through his legal leadership, have managed to restore or get back $1.1 billion from the sale of assets belonging to former President Yahya Jammeh. So this is bit controversial issue because recently we know of the ruling by the appeal court that says that the sales of assets ascribed to ownership of Jammeh must stop until further notice, because the commission is more of a recommended or fact-finding institution and not a legal instrument to recommend for, order for the sale of the assets. So supporters of the APRC are also taking this as an opportunity to revive their call for the, the wrong decisions, according to them, that the chief legal advisor has been given to the government. So as a result, this is one of the aspects where some commentators feel that despite the fact that enumerating a long list of successfully done reform, he might be running away in one aspect of the coin.
Yeah, many critics or commentators, should I say, also bring that point that it is seen as a way of running from responsibilities and other things because of the many things that were happening currently, especially at this crucial time of the Jane Commission report and the assets of the former president Yahya Jammeh, the sellings of the asset, over $1 billion of the asset, and of course the controversy surrounding the APRC. But you did mention that, he did mention in his speech that APRC should wake up from their dream because Jammeh would always be in the past. So that is a battle between him and the APRC. And he did also mention in his speech that because of the many things that he is, because of the justice he really wants to give to the justice, that is the reason why the APRC were not happy with him. But and he did promise that Jammeh will be brought to justice one day, and he will face the court even in his living. So that is very, very important. But again, other people will say that is this a victory to the APRC, considering the fact that this month, barely a month or less than a month, the APRC held a press conference urging on the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, former Attorney General actually, to resign from his position, you know, due to the way and manner in which he handled the selling of the assets of the former president Yahya Jammeh. So all these controversies surrounding, many people are of the belief that
would it also be part of the issues we talked about, that Gambia is now the law is at work? If you look at his leadership, he created such an environment where what the law says is, you know, considered over what individual beliefs are. So that is the freedom of speech or freedom of expression that he also listed among some of his successful reforms as a Attorney General, Minister of Justice for the past 3 years. So he came to bail out the government, especially after the collapse of the governance of Jammeh. So this was under Barrow for the past rough 3 years, that, you know, critics will always have something to say in his view. And that is not the only issue, but Batambedu is proving further that, you know, sometimes even when the law is implemented, it doesn't have to be in his favor, or he don't have to celebrate. But what people do, you know, should be justified by the law, and what the law says is always final. So this is a reason why he calls it a critical, you know, seat, critical moment, critical juncture. And then, notwithstanding that, the ongoing, you know, commissions and constitutional or, you know, revolutionary reform, we call them the TRC, the CRC, the Journey Commission, and the National Human Rights Commission. So these are the first that he mentioned as his primary objective achieved as Minister of Justice. But now, where is he going? So for one to be able to justify whether Ba is really, you know, there, or he is, you know, relieving himself from the challenges on daily basis, depends on where he's going. And that is for the question and answers to continue, because even in the government acceptance of his resignation, government did say, yeah, that he did great, and they gave all the credit of these reforms, you know, to the chief advisor as far as legal matters are concerned. So you can see between him and President Barrow with the government, there is a go and come, you know, gratitudes going. He commended the government, and the government commended him also. So there is still that relationship, that it doesn't show that there is things falling apart.
Yeah, even in 2017, when he was sworn in at the Karaba Beach Hotel, President Adama Barrow actually did mention he believes that the judicial system is saved under Batambedu, because he knows the job and he is willing to do the job. So he believed that with Batambedu, the Gambia judicial system would be independent and a strong one. So, and Ba also, you could see that when he started, he said he owed that to President Adama Barrow for the opportunity accorded to him, and for the support and everything that is given to him under the leadership of Barrow. And it is important also to note that Ba actually resigned initially when the issue of the passport saga came in. He wanted to resign, but his resignation was was denied by
issue of the NIA
9 and also other controversies.
Okay.
But
so
President
I have
Barrow
someone
actually,
on the line. Maybe I get back to you shortly.
Right.
On the line is Sekou Jammeh, Secretary General of the Gambia Press Union. Mr. Jammeh, we have seen that Honorable Ba Tambedu, used your quote in January 2017 in your Facebook post and Twitter post that Gambians have decided, not exactly the quote is not that because Jammeh is out and Barrow is in, but because Gambians have decided. So how will you remember Batambedu, and what is special about this post you think the Minister of Justice outgoing is using this constantly?
Well, Ba has been quoting this particular tweet of mine since he came to office, and he quoted it on many occasions. For me, it is an honor to have me quoted by the Justice Minister and Attorney General. I wish he didn't, because I typically don't like to be in public like that. But yeah, it's an honor, and I'm greatly humbled by it, and I am pleased that he recognizes that the tweet is very relevant to the political realities of the country. Yeah.
Now the Minister of Justice is going, so he have mentioned a number of bills that he have initiated to be passed through the National Assembly. One of them includes the Access to Information Bill, which concerns a lot about journalists and journalism in this country. So what are the hopes now that if he leaves, where will be the faith of this bill?
Well, we have faith in not only Ba, his office. This is a full-fledged office that is manned by very competent people, and we hope and we are confident that there will be continuity of the work that Honorable Tambadu has started. And the new Justice Minister that is coming in also is not someone who is new to the issues that are of concern to us. He is a human rights advocate par excellence. So we have no doubt that he is in line with the work that we have started with Ba, and we've come really quite far. Just about to cross a number of bridges, and I think he is well prepared, and he is also, he will sail us through, I think.
Yeah, with regards to the speed of progress and reforms around communications and the field of journalism, Batambedu talks about the freedom of information or freedom of speech that is the government of Barrow has ushered in. But notwithstanding that, during the past 3 years, there have been instances of journalists being arrested, detained, and radio stations shut and reopened. So the challenges are still ongoing. So how do we use these to respond or explain further to the provision of freedom of expression, if I call it so-called?
Well, to be quite honest with you, I think we have seen that the issue of press freedom has been put back on a slippery slope quite recently, because, like you said, there has been a number of attacks on journalists, including arrests and assaults, and we've not seen the state having any serious interest or commitment towards addressing those issues, and that's a concern. But with regards to our engagement with the bar, of course, that will be one of the issues that we will count as the shortcomings of the Justice Ministry under bar. But then we have approached him and spoke to him on this issue, and he was quite open to having the issue of assault on journalists criminalized, and we exactly are working on the framework that we will give to the Justice Ministry to facilitate that process. And so it was work in progress. But then I think we can also be satisfied in the fact that apart from the Access to Information Bill that he has introduced, the Criminal Offences Bill that he has also tabled will repeal in its entirety issues of sedition, issues of criminal defamation, and he had already introduced a bill to amend the Information and Communication Act. And when that goes through also, then that will also repeal the false publication on the internet provision in the Information and Communication Act. So we've gone quite far in those areas. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is just 4 days for the outgoing minister to leave office and for one Diallo to take over. But in his farewell speech, Honorable Abubakar Tambedu could not complete the speech without addressing the media specifically to say that even though there is freedom of speech, misinformation is one of the greatest threats to the existing peace, and he took some time to advise talk to the media about its responsibility. Does this also suggest that the minister thinks that the media is not in a safe hand?
I'm sorry, your line was breaking. If you can.
The minister took some time in his speech just now to address the media, talking about the dangers of misinformation. So does this also suggest that the minister feels that the Gambia is not entirely safe in the hands of the media?
Well, the issue of misinformation goes beyond the media, and I'm quite sure the minister recognizes that. All over the world, the issue of misinformation and disinformation is a concern to governments, and it is as well a concern to press freedom advocates like the GPU. The GPU doesn't like to see misinformation. The GPU is not in favor of disinformation. And the problem is, usually when you talk about misinformation and disinformation, people think that it is a matter for journalists. It is associated with journalists. And journalists are not the ones that are engaging in disinformation, and they are not the ones that are engaged in misinformation. That's why it should be the responsibility of every press freedom advocate, every journalist, to fight against misinformation, to fight against this.
Thank you very much, Sekou Jammeh, Secretary General of the Gambia Press Union there. That was Sekou Jammeh, whose Facebook or social media post through Twitter that the Minister of Justice, used to close his press conference to say that Gambians have really decided, not because the son is there, not because Jammeh is gone, not because Barrow is in. So not exact quote, but this is the second time that the Minister of Justice, now outgoing, is using that quotation to close his speech. But actually he addressed the media also to say that misinformation, like Sekou, who is the secretary of the GPU, also alluded to, is always a concern for governments and the public. So meaning that the bar is still advising the media.
Yeah, he advised the media to be mindful of that and not to be used by politics or narrow political-minded individuals, at the expense of others. And he did also mention a very important point for the fact that most important, honest and hardworking people would want to run away from the civil service because of the many character assassination, not the exact one, but that is what he meant, character assassination, that the public figures are exposed to. So that goes to the media, especially. He did comment the many good things that the media have been doing over the years, but he, cautioned them to be mindful of misinformation. Though, like Mr. Jammeh said, misinformation or disinformation, it's not only connected to the media, but to even the social media, which is one of the biggest medium where misinformation and disinformation can be found in. But it's very important that people know what they're doing. But in journalism per se, people are really prepared, especially at the GPU level. I think they're have been doing quite well on that, like bring in commissions to make sure they regulate the media and other things, which I think is very, very important. So he did also talk about peace. People should jealously safeguard the peace that is in the country, which is very, very important. That this peace that we have, because there will be no peace, there will be no development if we don't have peace in the country, which he alluded to, and he cautioned everybody to be mindful of that. And yeah, but in his marathon of speech, but the most important thing that he highlighted is what he has done so far since after 3.5 years, into office as the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. He talked about the prohibition of torture bill, which for the first time the government of the Gambia is introducing. The anti-corruption bill also he talked about, and of course the bill on legalizing bleaching also, which was criminalized in Jammeh's time. That was also included.
Okay.
All thanks to his leadership.
Yeah, because the time is all over. From here, that was the special coverage we had from the Ministry of Justice in the wake of resignation by the outgoing Minister of Justice and Attorney General for the Gambia. So right now we will, because Kepargi is on the way by 12 o'clock, the Kepargi with Modi Nyang will be here. But before then, we'll leave you with part of what Minister of Justice outgoing had said earlier on, and bye for now.
Justice to His Excellency President Adam Barrow. My resignation will take effect from 30th June 2020. While it saddens me to leave office at this critical juncture of our transition, I am consoled by the fact that I leave behind a capable team of committed and dedicated personnel who have been working very closely with me on all our processes from the beginning. Their institutional knowledge and experiences will ensure that these ongoing activities remain on course and on the right track. It has been an honor and unique privilege for me to serve my country in such high office under His Excellency President Barrow. I owe him immense gratitude for the privileged opportunity given to me to contribute, even if modestly, to rebuilding our country after 22 years of unquantifiable damage. I am grateful to him for the trust and confidence he had shown in me by my appointment as the first Attorney General and Minister of Justice in a post-dictatorship new democratic Gambia. I thank him for his constant and continuous support to me and the Ministry of Justice throughout my tenure as AG over the past 3.5 years. I owe him an eternal debt of gratitude. What happened in this country on 1st December 2016 was a revolution by any standards, a political revolution to match any other in world history. We removed a dictator by democratic means, through the ballot box, and peacefully. We should all be proud of this historical achievement. At a personal level, it would have been enough for me to just witness this historic moment, let alone be asked to play an active part in the ensuing process of change. Since then, a lot has happened over the past 3.5 years. On my part, I have initiated and delivered on the key pillars of our transitional justice process, which has now achieved global recognition by experts as being among the best models in the world, particularly for its inclusiveness and originality. Some other key milestones include the successful gazetting of a new draft constitution without amendment, the establishment of a Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission process, which is currently underway, the establishment of the Gambia'S first National Human Rights Commission, and the establishment of the Janneh Commission to inquire into the financial corruption of former President Jammeh, and as a result of which the government has been able to recover over $1.1 billion so far. And in all of these processes, we were able to put together a team of talented and credible Gambians, and I wish to thank them for their service to country.